Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Puget Sound Liberation Report. I'm Andy Chan.
And I'm Kate Ross. We will be featuring news from the front lines of humanity's struggle for self-emancipation.
On Tuesday, the 22nd of March, the city of Amsterdam witnessed a huge eviction wave. It was the first big series of evictions after the new anti-squat law in Holland. The formerly quite tolerant attitude in Holland towards squatting has been replaced by a zero-tolerance approach to anyone taking housing rights into their own hands. Instead of evicting squatted houses one by one, the Amsterdam police has a tradition of evicting in so-called eviction waves. An eviction wave generally consists of a high number of riot police, specialised teams for breaking open doors and barricades, police dogs, armoured water cannon trucks, and sometimes a helicopter. This time, the usual circus was even joined by military police. Starting early in the morning, this police force crossed the city and evicted a number of pre-announced squats. Instead of focusing on defensive squats to be evicted, this time a call-out was made for decentralised autonomous actions. The night before the eviction wave was a chaotic one for the police. Even though they were massively present in the streets during the whole night before the eviction wave, individuals attacked and vandalised several state and corporate targets. A police van was set on fire, banks attacked, and cash machines smashed. Furthermore, a car belonging to a big housing corporation was burned to the ground. Squatting and anti-authoritarian graffiti was left all over the city. 6 arrests were made during the night. 1 person was arrested when she refused to leave the squat. 10 houses were evicted after a full day of police activity. The costs of an eviction wave are estimated at €700,000.
In defense of the Khimki hostages, we call everyone who is not indifferent in different cities and countries to show solidarity for the persecuted brothers Denis and Maxim Solopov and Alexei Gaskarov. They became hostages in the course of the unbelievable story with the Khimki forest, a story of confrontation between civil society in today's Russia and a soulless junta of avaricious corruptors. Due to this situation, the city of Khimki and the Moscow suburbs has gained a reputation beyond the borders of Russia. Alexei Gaskarov and Maxim Solopov spent 3 months in prison due to a fabricated case which is currently collapsing in court. Investigators used threats, torture, and false witnesses from amongst police agents. On the 14th of April, there will be a new court session in the Khimki court. Denis Solopov is a young painter who is currently jailed in the Lukyanovka prison in Kiev, Ukraine, where prisoners are kept in inhumane conditions. For example, they sleep in 3 shifts due to overcrowding of the cells. Although Denis has been approved refugee status by the UN Council on Human Rights, which proves that he has a concrete basis for his appeal, the Ukrainian Migration Service refused him asylum. Immediately after the denial, he was arrested, which means that the Migration Service of Ukraine exceeded their powers, hinting to local police that Denis was at their premises. The 40-day period of preliminary arrest of Denis is due to expire on the 11th of April, after which he should either be freed or will be arrested for the whole duration of the extradition process, which could take up to 1.5 years. All 3 young men are persecuted for the claimed participation in a demonstration against the clear-cutting of a forest in the way of a new Moscow-St. Petersburg toll highway, which resulted in insignificant damage to the Khimki city administration. The action was provoked by the fact that a subcontractor of the highway construction had hired ultra-right activists to attack the protest camp of peaceful eco-activists. This toll highway, the construction of which will obstruct the development of the current Moscow-St. Petersburg road, is necessary only for a narrow group of oligarchs, corrupt officials, and the top management of the French Vinci corruption, which he won the bid for the construction. Defenders of the forest and citizen activists in Khimki are regularly attacked and illegally persecuted. 2 journalists and civic activists Mikhail Beketov and Konstantin Beketov, were seriously crippled due to attacks against them. In various parts of Russia and the whole world, people are fighting for their social rights, for their real freedom, and not just for the freedom of those in power to buy and sell. Everywhere we see the danger of the transformation of our planet into a lifeless space, but those who reach for profit are not stopped by the nuclear disaster in Japan, not by the oil catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico, not by fires in the forests of the Moscow region. But when all of us who believe that our world is not good for sale are united, we will be strong. Different people from various countries and cities, from the USA to China, have organized 2 times already international days of common action, which resulted in the release of Alexei and Maxim from under arrest and the halt of the clear-cutting of the forest. The construction of the toll highway was temporarily halted as well, and most definitely new networks were formed between non-indifferent people from all around the world, bypassing borders and distances. We understand that there is no way we can survive alone. This is why we ask everyone who is not indifferent to participate in a new week of actions from now until the 9th of April. Organize actions at local embassies and consulates of Ukraine to demand the immediate release of Denis Solopov, actions at local embassies and the consulates of Russia to demand that all charges against Alexei Gaskarov and Maxim Solopov be dropped, and that the destruction of the Khimki forest be halted. Organize actions against branches of the transnational Vinci Corporation and demand a halt in the construction of the Moscow-St. Petersburg toll highway through the Khimki forest. Our solidarity is our weapon.
In Santiago and Valparaiso, Chile, police raided multiple homes and anarchist social centres on August 14, 2010. These raids were part of a wave of repression which led to the arrest and prosecution of 14 people in what is known as the Caso Bombas, or the bombs case. The 14 are charged with illicit terrorist association, another word for conspiracy, and with the transportation or placing of explosive devices in connection with anti-state and anti-capitalist attacks on institutions in the country over the last 3 years. 8 people were charged in Caso Bombas: Andrea Urzua, Camilo Perez, Carlos Riera, Felipe Guajardo, Francisco Solar, Monica Caballero, Rodolfo Retamales, and Pablo Morales. They have been in prison since August under preventive detention. On February 21, 2011, 7 of them began an indefinite hunger strike demanding their release, as well as the end of the anti-terrorist law. On February 23rd, the conditional release of co-defendant compañeros Vinicio Aguilera and Omar Hermosilla was revoked. Upon re-entering prison, they too joined the hunger strike. Today is the 39th of the indefinite hunger strike begun by imprisoned anarchists in Chile. Anarchists in Santiago are organising solidarity demonstrations which take place every Wednesday. At least 4 demos have taken place in Santiago, growing in size each time. Police have fired tear gas to break up the demonstrations, made numerous arrests, and repeatedly targeted the radical dance group Tinku. In a recent statement, anarchist hunger striker Monica Caballero sent a message to all comrades acting in solidarity. Have no doubt, this is a political trial. Today, just like before, anti-authoritarian ideas send chills down the spineless backs of those who love the law. So it is of utmost importance to propagate the ideas and encourage the different struggles that aim for the destruction of domination. The road is complex. The enemy mocks using the filthiest tricks possible, from preventing the drinking of water to laughing during every checkup. But it does not matter, because for each one of their attacks, my skin becomes even harder still. I send a strong embrace to my known comrades and those I don't know, to all the restless and unmanageable bodies and minds in every latitude. Make sure that the hunt never ends. Though, thanks to those of you who filled the halls and streets with light, political prisoners from August 14th on hunger strike to the streets. The strikers have several demands: immediate freedom, an end to the judicial political farce of the bomb case, an end to the investigation and an immediate trial. And the last one, to be not to be processed under the anti-terrorist law and the abolition of this law, which is a vestige of the Pinochet dictatorship. On March 15, 2011, 4 Mapuche political prisoners began a hunger strike as well. All 4 are facing serious sentences under anti-terror laws and have previously engaged in hunger strikes. Solidarity actions with the anarchist and social struggle strikers were reported in Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Greece, and Spain.
Jock Palfreeman is a 23-year-old Australian who on the 27th of December 2007 had the courage to stand up against 16 fascist hooligans on a night out in Sofia, Bulgaria. He witnessed the fascists chasing and attacking 2 young Roma boys. Jock ran to the boys' aids and did his best to keep the fascists at bay by waving a knife at them, but they attacked him. Jock was left with nowhere to run and had no choice but to defend himself. Andrei Manov, one of the racist gang, was stabbed and killed, and another, Anton Zahariev, was injured. The Roma boys ran away. Jock has since been tried and sentenced for murder and attempted murder. He has been sentenced to 20 years imprisonment and has been fined 375,000 Australian dollars. Jock has spent much of the time he has already served in isolation due to a legal loop used by the prison authorities. Andrei Manov's father is well-known in Bulgaria, and at the funeral there were a mixture of judges, police, and politicians. Jock's trial was, not surprisingly, a complete sham. Yet another example of corruption and secret handshakes in the judicial system. The prosecution's case was built on the witness statements made by the other Nazis that were there that night, all claiming that Jock randomly attacked the group and chased them with the intent of killing somebody. Key people and possible witnesses for Jock's defense were never interviewed by police, and the CCTV footage from the scene miraculously went missing. Many of the statements made at the time were not the same as the statements submitted to the court by the prosecution. Jock's statement has remained consistent from the night in question. You can read Jock's official statement at www.freejock.com. You can also watch a documentary about this case that contains interviews with Jock. Jock appealed against his sentence, and a few court hearings took place between October 2010 and January 2011. Despite police officers confirming his version of events, one of the fascists making totally incoherent statements in court trying to explain why he changed his original testimony, mounting evidence of judicial errors during the initial trial, and all other factors pointed to his innocence. His sentence of 20 years was upheld. He has one last chance of appealing against that decision. It is now more important than ever that we collectively put as much pressure on the Bulgarian authorities as possible to accept Jock's final appeal. From the 11th to the 17th of April, there will be another International Week of Action for Jock. The more creative the actions, the better. Don't let Bulgarian state bury this courageous man alive in prison. Don't let them think that they can get away with it.
The European Court of Human Rights ruled Thursday that an Italian policeman's fatal shooting of a demonstrator at the 2001 Group of 8 Genoa summit was in self-defense, and that the case had been properly investigated by the authorities. The judgment by the 17 judges of the ECHR's Grand Chamber is definitive, the court said in a statement. The case had been brought before the ECHR by the relatives of Carlo Giuliani, who, aged 23, was killed on July 20, 2001. Giuliani, who since his death has become an icon for many in the anti-globalization movement, was wearing a black ski mask and was holding a fire extinguisher, which he was apparently about to hurl at a police car when he was shot dead. The ECHR dismissed allegations that Giuliani's death had been caused by excessive use of force. After viewing video footage and photographs of the incident, the ECHR noted that the officer who had fired the shots had been confronted with a group of demonstrators conducting an unlawful and very violent attack on the vehicle in which he was stranded. In those circumstances, the use of the potentially lethal means of defense, such as firing of shots, had been justified, the ECHR ruled. It also dismissed allegations that there had been shortcomings in the organisation of operations to maintain and restore public order in Genoa for the G8, and that there had been no effective investigation into Giuliani's death. Reacting to the verdict, Giuliani's father, Giuliano, said the family would not surrender, and noted how the Grand Chamber judges were split over some of the issues covered by their ruling. The family would further pursue the case through the civil courts, the father said. In 2003, the judge at a preliminary inquest in Italy ruled that the bullet fired by Mario Placanica's pistol deflected off a stone before hitting Giuliani in the head. The judge accordingly ruled that there was no need for a trial because the policeman did not intend to shoot the demonstrator. Hundreds were injured during the almost 3 days of rioting during the G8 summit in Genoa, when police clashed with demonstrators trying to enter the Genoa city centre, where G8 leaders from the United States, Germany, France, Italy, Canada, Britain and Russia were meeting, and which had been declared off limits. That concludes our show for today. I'm Andy Chan.
And I'm Kate Ross. Thanks for watching the Puget Sound Liberation Report.